Okay, Vivian, this is the video I downloaded from the most recent trial this past weekend. So I'm gonna go over this video real quick with you. Um, I picked Patrick as the comparison here because he has a pretty good technique in terms of what I would generally look for in terms of stroke length and how he's setting up his body each time during the pool. Okay, so just playing this in slow motion for a little bit so you can kind of have this as a reference to look at. Okay, so let me go back now, kind of scrub through this in slow motion with you. Okay. So the first thing, I think you get a little bit better twist on the dragon boat. I know my previous video where you were sitting on the right side, it looked like your twist was a little bit better, but for your left side here in this video, obviously you can see how much more of Patrick's back is showing to the camera here, right? So you can see that twist quite a bit more. If we circle these shoulders, you can see his outer shoulders here. Your outer shoulders right here. You can definitely see his inner shoulder is pulled back, outer shoulder is forward to get that twist differential up all the way at that shoulder line. So you can see your inner shoulder is still kind of hidden behind your torso there. So a little bit of twist is lacking there. As you go into your stroke, okay, one big thing that I want you to try to think about, because I try to point this out in the other video, is trying to get yourself to think about sitting up a little bit earlier in your stroke. So as your blade gets into that full buried position, I want you to think about sitting up, getting that core, okay, sitting up a little bit earlier. So right now, your blade goes from here. It's about 3/4 buried here. Typically, once you get the boat moving, this is probably the point where it's actually safe for you to start pulling around here and still get a quiet entry. You'll notice Patrick on the right side, right? Because the boat's moving, as he take particular attention, pay close attention to his shoulders. Okay, you can see that his shoulders start to derotate as this blade right here, right? If you look at this blade getting right into this region, if I go back and forth right here, you can see his shoulders are starting to derotate and load that blade right as it's getting into that curved section of that paddle. Okay, because the boat is moving fast enough for him to load it at that point and still catch cleanly. Okay. So as you get into this point, your blade is already getting fully buried, maybe around here. Ideally, you want it to be buried a little bit earlier. I can't tell. Oh, it looks like you have a fixed paddle length here. Definitely on the OC2. Sometimes it helps to paddle with actually a slightly longer blade on the OC2. If you have an adjustable paddle, or if you have access to one, that's definitely a good time to use it. Because you are sitting up a little bit higher than you are in a dragon boat. If you think about, right, our hip line compared to the water level, in a dragon boat, it's definitely usually sitting up. That water line is definitely usually a little bit higher in the dragon boat. Anyways, so regardless, I think the key thing to think about is when your blade, if you were to get it buried a little bit more in the front, right, like Patrick has here, usually get that blade a little bit more in that positive region. I keep drawing the wrong line here. Okay, so kind of around this line, when your blade is around this angle, you want to start derotating, and at that point you should not be leaning into the stroke anymore because you're spending energy going down when your blade is already at an optimal angle to start pulling back. So you can see at this point, that I've highlighted here, okay, you can see right now you derotate and your body continues to move downwards, and we don't see your body sit up until about here. So if you take a look at where your blade position is in relation to your body angle, right? Your body angle is still quite a bit lean forward. Actually, this is very, very lean forward. Whereas typically, what I'd like to see, by the time you get to that point, your body should have sat up most of the way, right? Because you are nearing at least halfway, getting close to the end of the stroke here. So you can see, right? Because Patrick has sat up, you can see the big difference in paddle angles, right? Or paddle placement. If we take a look at these two lines, right? These two blue lines, and look at the differential that is created by whether you have sat up in your stroke or not, right? You can see the big difference there. So the distance covered pulling through, okay, so through Patrick's stroke, he's able to utilize that full range of motion of his back through that entire length of the stroke. For you, right, the back is staying lean forward, and so a lot of that energy that you successfully put into that lean here is not getting transferred efficiently into the pool here. So from this range to this range, okay, you could get a much stronger pull if you just sat up a little bit earlier. So try to think about that, especially for these tests. I think in the boat, that video that I did just before this, it wasn't quite as drastic here, but I saw this in your right side erg test as well, which I'll get to in a second. So these tests that you're doing on the OC2, definitely one thing that's going to help you out a lot is to try to sit up just a little bit earlier. Okay, so I'm kind of doing this in slow motion here just to kind of highlight the difference. So another way to think about it is think about that outer shoulder, right? Your arm is kind of just an extension of your core there. So you really want to think about accelerating that outer shoulder back, right? Okay. Hope that helps a little bit here. I think that's the main thing is sitting up a little bit earlier. Obviously, in this particular video, getting a little bit more twist into the front of your stroke as well. All right.